Hi everyone, and welcome to this week's video. My name is Angel DeSantis. Thank you for being here. As usual, construction upstairs, but hopefully I can cut it out. This week's video is a continuation from last week's video where I talked about why it's difficult to accomplish things. And with this week's video, I want to talk about why it was hard, like why it was such a barrier. Because I really, for the life of me, after I left the cult, I could not try new things. You couldn't get me to try new things. And now, who I am now is I love new things. If you ask me to try a new food, go to a new place, try a new crowd of people, new experience, I'm always up for it. And it's because I was able to undo the blockage in my brain that was set up to hold me back. And so I want to share that information with you so that as you're on your healing journey, you start to lean towards the things that are new, which if you've been through the religious trauma ringer, your brain is not set up to accept new information. So I want to talk about why it's not meant to accept new information and how to get past that, or how I got past that rather, because your healing journey is different from mine, but I want to share all of mine in case there is something in there that helps you. So let's track back, let's find the wound, and then we'll find the healing. So the wound, I think, is fairly obvious. If you are here, you were raised in a religiously traumatic environment, or you have some sort of experience with that. And the only reason that these organized religions continue to function is because they know how to suppress self. And so if they can take an individual and they can suppress their own internal self and teach them to not ask questions and teach them to not be curious, then the religious environment will be able to control behavior. So in order for you to be a cog in the machine, they need to kind of strip away your sense of self and take away your curiosity. And if they fail on either of those things, they're not going to be able to control you. And so as you're moving yourself out, the two things to go get back: sense of self and curiosity, because those are the things they try to take from you. And for me, when I first left the religiously abusive environment, spoiler alert, it was a cult, I could not, for the life of me, accept new information. Somebody would start giving information, and it would be a casual conversation of like, well, I read this book and blah, 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 and I would start getting scared. I would start getting into fight or flight. I would feel myself get shaky and tingly, and I would just leave the conversation. So I was a terrible conversationalist for that reason, where I was just scared because I knew I wasn't supposed to be hearing this information. And my brain was set up that when you start receiving information that conflicts with the religion, you need to leave the situation. And so I kept that sort of defense mechanism. So it was difficult to receive. And then you combine that with the idea that in the religious community, you're supposed to be an extension of God. You're supposed to be an extension of Christ. And so when you're bad at something, that means Christ is bad through you. And so if you're bad at something, it's a terrible reflection of Christ. Therefore, you deserve to be punished, and that punishment will be warranted because you should have been good at something. And hopefully your experience is not as bad as mine, but I experienced this a lot, where I would sing off key, I would be dragged out and beaten and told that I was shaming God, and God was ashamed of me, and I deserved the harm that I got from the adult who was beating me because I was being a bad reflection of Christ. And so if you combine that, then what it made me do is I would run from new information. And I was also so afraid to try anything new because I might be punished, or it might reflect badly on me or on Christ or on my spouse, because as we know, as a good Christian wife, you need to make your spouse look good or you're failing. So for all those reasons, I found it really difficult to move myself forward, because when your brain doesn't have new experiences, it will not grow. If you are not actively seeking out new information and new experiences, your brain has no need to grow. But your brain wants to make new connection. It wants to. That's what it's built for. So if you find yourself in this situation where you find it difficult to try new things or talk to new people or have different experiences or even be curious, just understand where the wound comes from. And it's likely that you were raised in an environment that needed to control you, which means they need to take those two things, sense of self and curiosity. And so let's just start from this point now, where you have enough autonomy to be here, search it, run across this video, and you have the curiosity to keep watching, right? So in order to move yourself forward, I invite you to think about what is in your way, what's stopping you. And for me, it was those two things. It was, I didn't want to reflect badly on Christ, and I didn't want to take in new information. So what is it for you, do you think, that prevents you from receiving new information or from having new experiences? Is it a fear of failure? Is it a fear that you're going to be bad? In which case, you're going to be bad for who? Like, track it back. Keep on trying to find out why you were averse to these experiences. And likely, you'll be able to track it back to the fact that somebody needed to control your behavior. But being an autonomous adult in this moment, you get to choose your behavior. You get to go retrieve your sense of self, and you get to be curious. So once I figured out what it was for me and why I was stopping myself, what I did is I allowed myself to be bad at things. I allowed myself not to know things because I didn't need to be smart for Christ. I allowed myself to try swing dancing because I didn't need to be really good for Christ, or really good, or I would shame my husband. I was just wanting to try new things and allowing myself to be bad at them because it didn't say anything about me that I was bad at these things, except that it was my first time with these things. And when you were out of a religiously abusive environment that is highly controlled, most everything in the world is new. And if you were raised like I was, that's a terrifying thought. It's not exciting. You're terrified of it. But in order to move yourself forward, allow yourself to take that fear and turn it into excitement. There's a really famous quote that says, fear is just excitement without the breath. And for me, I'm like, great, I took a breath, I'm still scared, now what? But what I think it means is you need to be able to take a breath and come back to yourself. So if you're going to try these new experiences, you need a sense of self to come back to. And the way that I tried all these new experiences is I asked myself, do I want, does myself want this experience? Does myself want to know this? And for me, myself wanted to know how to play chess. So I took a beginner's course online where no one could see me. But I wanted to try it because I wanted that to be part of myself. And I wanted to try swing dancing because I wanted that to be part of myself. And I want to try new foods, etc., etc. So my question for you is, number one, to identify your blockages. And number two is to get your sense of self and your curiosity back and ask yourself, what does myself want to do? What do you want as part of your identity? Because it's important to build yourself back up, because you were likely never allowed to build it in the first place. So in order to move myself forward, I always ask myself, can I be proud of this thing, or do I want this as part of myself? And if the answer is yes, I do, then I work through the fear and I do the thing. So that's my advice. That's my little story. I am unafraid of being seen being bad at things. I'm unafraid to try new things because I know that if I'm able to stick to it, then eventually I'll be good at the thing. But you got to be willing to be bad first. And if you're unwilling to be bad at it, ask yourself why. Because nobody expects you to be good the first time you do anything, except maybe you. In which case, ask yourself why. Because I assume that if there's something that you do and you wanted to invite someone else to try it for the first time, you wouldn't expect them to be excellent at it, and you would give them a lot of grace. But somehow we don't extend that to ourselves. We think, well, if I'm going to try it, I need to be really good. You don't. You can just show up as you are, have the courage to try something new, and let your brain and your life expand. So it's important to cultivate the courage to move yourself forward. Ask yourself, do you want this as part of yourself? Does yourself want this? And if so, give yourself permission to be bad at things. Give yourself permission to learn, to ask questions, to try. The thing that I tried since the beginning of the year is getting up early every morning to meditate. I've never done that before. I always do my meditation sporadically. But I thought, does my self want this? Like, do I want this as part of my self identity? And I was like, yeah, I want to try it. And I'm willing to be bad at it. And one of the days I missed it and I did it in the afternoon. But for the most part, I've been doing it and it's been going really well. And it makes me feel good. And my brain has made new connections. And I now know that I can be the kind of person that wakes up and meditates in the morning. And I didn't know that until I tried. So I encourage you to let yourself be seen, let yourself try something new, let yourself be bad at things. It's really fun to be bad at things, if I'm being honest, and to show up and just ask somebody like, hey, how do I do this? And the thing is if you're willing to show up and ask, how do I do this? 10 times out of 10, I have found there is somebody that is willing to help you, because people want you to have a good life experience. And I understand that that may not have been your experience in the past. It was also not my experience in the past, but I was willing to try a new experience. So go get yourself and your curiosity back and try a new experience. And then tell me what it is in the comments so I can applaud you, so we can all applaud you. Because the more we're open to new experiences and being convinced otherwise, or taking in new information, the more your life will expand. And honestly, it'll get so much better. So that's my video this week. I hope it was helpful. Tell me the new thing that you try, or tell me something new to try. I'm willing to try new food as long as it's not sea cucumber. So drop it in the comments below. Thank you for being here, and I'll see y'all next time.